I worked at a Little Caesars one, and I ate so much sausage, so I was just shoving sausage in my mouth. No pun intended.
Oh, don't say that.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Top Podcast. I'm your host, Mike. As always, I'm joined by my friends Rob and Lou.
What's up?
Hello, toppers.
Gosh. And this week, it is my pleasure to introduce our first ever guest on the podcast. He is a graduate of the illustrious University of Michigan. Dearborn, but still. He was the original third member of the Top Podcast before Lou ruthlessly took his seat.
I mean, it's better than Clint.
He informs me that Dankeschön is in fact German, and he once made the entire walk from his cabin to the camp dining hall before realizing he'd forgot to put on pants. Please welcome my personal friend of the show, and my cousin, Andrew.
Woo, yeah.
Well, hello. Yeah, what do you think that was? That walk, like 150 yards, 200 yards?
Were you just
That's what cabin you were in.
Were you sunrise cabin? Because that would be, oh my gosh, that'd be a long walk.
And to be fair, I was a junior. But, I mean, that's what, 4th or 5th grade? Definitely old enough that you should remember to put on pants, probably.
I was told that story the week after it happened. I was in middle school, and my mom, I don't know what they were thinking, because my mom told me that story, and I think she realized what she had done, and she was like, "You are not allowed to tell this story ever." And I'm like, you know what? I'm almost 30, Mom. I'm telling this story on a podcast.
There we go. Worldwide now.
Let the world know, yeah.
This week, we are talking about our top 3 sports moments. It's become clear that we all have a slightly different interpretation of what makes it a top moment, but I think that'll just make it fun. And I'm going to kick us off with my number 3 moment, which is Jet Chip Wasp in Super Bowl 54.
What?
Are we not doing a silly question?
No, we just we were just getting to know Andrew.
Oh, okay.
All right, silly question.
Cool.
Have you ever walked anywhere without pants outside of your house?
Yes.
I have not. All right, Mike, Super Bowl. Let's hear it. Was it like in the 80s?
No, Jet Chip Wasp, Super Bowl 54. This is like, what, 2019?
Super Bowl 2. All right, continue. Let's hear it.
So the thing that makes this play special for me was it was kind of the vindication of my journey as a Chiefs fan. Because whenever I almost feel
Wait, hold up, time out. When did you become a Chiefs fan?
This is 2015.
Bandwagoner.
I'm
2015.
Bandwagoner.
This is why I don't like saying that I'm a Chiefs fan, because now they're big and they're doing well, and it's like,
let me tell you,
right?
So
that's why I started with Jet Chip
You are so
Wasp.
close to the mic right now. It's so funny to picture you just so close to the mic.
In Oklahoma,
Mike Rice likes the most winningest NFL franchise, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They got 6 Super Bowls. He's like, I'll like them until the Chiefs start a dynasty, and then they're
not my favorite team. I am a fan of them.
Let me tell you, in Oklahoma, which is relatively close to Kansas City, there were no Chiefs fans before Patrick Mahomes. But as soon as Patrick Mahomes got in, and then you start seeing jerseys.
Well, in Michigan, there was one. Let me finish. Because, as I said, Jet Chip Wasp was the perfect vindication to a multi-year journey, starting in the 2017 season opener, where Alex Smith and the Chiefs took on the New England Patriots. And here's something that's very important to know about me. I love football more than most things, right? I love football more than
his child, his wife,
some family members.
his work.
It sounds.
And I have loved football longer than almost anything that I love currently. Outside of parents, grandparents, sister, there's just it is the longest standing thing that I love in my life. I hate Tom Brady more than I love football. That is the most
watch your mouth.
That is the most powerful emotion that resides within me. And so in the 2017 season opener, when Alex Smith came back and had a dominant second half and beat the defending Super Bowl Patriots in their house, I pledged my allegiance.
Wow.
I was all about it.
I saw something like that happen last Thursday. I don't see you switching teams.
That was rough. That was rough. A team I hated was not beaten. Although I mean, hey man, that was a great game. That was probably the second or third best game of the week. But
can you remind us where the Patriots finished that season?
I believe they won the Super Bowl.
Correct.
No way they couldn't have won the Super Bowl because they didn't repeat.
They made
so
the
I believe
Super Bowl
they lost.
What year was it?
That would be that was 2017. That was the
that
Philly
Eagles?
year.
Yeah.
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 That Super Bowl also almost made my list because I hate Tom
Shout
Brady
out
that
to
much.
Matt, worst
Don't-
Lions head
don't-
coach of my
I'm
lifetime,
bleeping
which is
out that name.
which
Bleeping
is
out. That's a
a
curse.
bold statement because the Lions have had some pretty horrid
They
coaches,
really
but
have.
Matt just another level. For those of you who aren't NFL fans, this man had a pencil behind his ear all the time for his laminated sheet. He wanted to have a pencil for his look. It was part of his appeal.
Well,
Matt Patricia is the worst.
let's be honest. I'm not gonna revise history there, but when he came in, everyone was down with the pencil. Like everyone was so.
Oh, I
hyped
was
for him
so
to get hired.
stoked. I thought it was
I
going
was
to
Just
be
there
making
too.
fun of the pencil from the beginning. Sorry, it's stupid. If you're using the pencil, fine. He has a laminated sheet. He just wanted to look like he was smart with a freaking pencil.
It worked.
He looked
Fooled
like
me.
he staggered out of a bar.
Yeah, he
I
was
mean,
trash.
To be fair, most players have weird quirks.
That is true. I have a suspicion
visiting-
Patricia was never a player, though.
He was a player.
Maybe in high
Well,
school.
not in college, which I mean doesn't mean much, I guess. But sorry.
So so the Chiefs. That was it for me. I was like, all right, man. Andy Reid, gotta love Andy Reid. I like Alex Smith. I'm hitching. They're not my number one team. My number one team has been the Steelers since middle school, and we'll get into that later. These guys were a team that I was rooting for. They are in my solid second tier, right under the gold standard. You know, they didn't win the Super Bowl, but then at the end of the year, they trade away Alex Smith, and I was devastated because they were just replacing him with this nobody. I didn't watch college football, so for me, it was some nobody named Patrick Mahomes, and I was just like, I don't know what they're doing, man. And they proceed to win I think, they win 13, 14 games, and they make it to the AFC Championship, and who do they lose to? Tom Patrick Mother Brady.
The GOAT.
I was livid, but the next year, they came back, they go to the mountaintop, and then they proceed to fall down 10-20 to the San Francisco 49ers. And I was just heartbroken. I was like, man, are you kidding me? And it was such a crazy postseason because they were down 24 to the Texans and they were down 10 to the Browns. What the heck happened there? And they came back. And then they were at, I believe it was 3rd and 15. And Pat Mahomes takes like 7 or 9 steps back and heaves one up to Tyreek Hill. Jet chip wasp was the play call. Tyreek catches it, and that was the spark they needed. The drive ended with a Travis Kelce touchdown, and they had the momentum. They won that Super Bowl, and it was just that moment where I was like, this is my team. I embraced them, and then I got to journey with them to the Super Bowl, and I've been a, quote, bandwagon fan ever since.
I do like Patrick Mahomes. I don't know many people who dislike Patrick Mahomes.
He's so hard to dislike.
Well, he does put ketchup on his steaks.
That's
I will
pretty
grant
weird.
that's
That's
a valid reason to dislike him.
That's a character flaw, but I don't think it undoes all the likability of him.
He sounds like what
Kermit.
is it, Kermit?
Yeah.
Kermit. He does sound
Yeah.
like Kermit
He
too.
does sound like Kermit. His wife said some super funny. He asked her they were doing like a relationship quiz, and one of the things was what was his favorite junk meal, and she was like fried chicken. He was like, it's Mexican food. I had to watch the video. It's pretty funny.
I've heard his wife has said some pretty crazy things online, and his brother or something.
Yeah.
His brother has done some pretty crazy things offline too.
Oh.
Yeah, isn't he in some pretty serious trouble now?
I think so.
Yeah,
Not
I
as-
think so.
Not as much as the Chiefs maniac.
Yeah, oh my
No.
gosh, that guy is the best.
I don't know
Robbing
about
banks
that.
to go watch football teams.
Yeah, so this guy, he would always dress up as a wolf, and he would go to every single Chiefs game, home or away. He was there. He kind of got this following online, like especially Chiefs fans. He's like, oh, people would take pictures with him in this wolf costume. Turns out Kansas City is playing an away game. He gets arrested for robbing a bank, and the cops put together that to fund this like Chiefs road trip. He would rob banks on the way to games to like pay for the trips. And he would just keep on doing that for years. It was wild.
Honestly, that's so impressive. He should be on an all-time list of bank robbers.
Retire
If he's
his
been robbing
number.
banks for years to go just to go see football games. So many people have got busted before they could rob their second bank. This man was doing it for years. He's got to be, if not the GOAT, on the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I would watch that movie if they made it into a movie.
I'm sure.
People would be like, this is so unrealistic. but then it's true.
Right? No one would believe it.
Hey, Lou, there's a writer's strike going on right now. You can submit the screenplay, and you'll probably get it picked up.
No, never. But you
I'll
guys
talk to the
can.
horseman.
I talked about this in the pre-show, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm a diehard Michigan fan. So I could easily just put 3 Michigan games here, but that'd be pretty boring. So I did pick 3 teams. So my number 3 occurred in week 8 of the 2013 NFL season. The Detroit Lions hosted the Dallas Cowboys, led by Tony Romo and Des Bryant. And in this game, the Lions outgained the Cowboys in total yardage, 623 to 268. But they also committed 4 turnovers to Dallas's 0. So Dallas kicked a late field goal to go up 30 to 24 with just a minute and 7 seconds left in the fourth quarter. And then over the next 5 plays, Matt Stafford just drives the Lions down the field, bam, 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 79 yards to the 1 yard line, and the clock is ticking. They have no timeouts. He's running to the line and he's saying clock, 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 and he's indicating that he's going to spike the ball. But as soon as the ball is snapped, he jumps over his own offensive line, scores the game-winning touchdown with 14 seconds left. The Lions win 31-30. So ultimately, this never led to anything for the season. The Lions didn't make the playoffs. Jim Schwartz lost his job at the end of the year. But it stands out to me, not just because of how exciting the conclusion and the finale was, with Matt Stafford, who did not have a lot of great moments in Detroit, but this was a bright spot.
Okay. All right.
I thought he had a lot of great
I was saying, come on, man. Are you a Stafford hater?
He didn't win a single playoff game. I'm not a Stafford hater. I was happy he got a ring.
Our grandfather, however, is a
That's
hardcore
true, yeah.
Stafford hater. Even after he won the Super Bowl with the Rams, he was like, no, he sucks. I was like, that man beat Tom Brady to get to that Super Bowl, and you still won't give him his flowers. It's ridiculous.
I mean, Nick Foles is a career backup who also won a Super Bowl over Tom.
Well, he has some black magic come playoff time.
But this was the first game, I don't know if it's happened since, but at the time, this was the first time in 6 years that a team was -4 in the turnover margin and won. And a big piece of that was Calvin Johnson, just unstoppable. 329 receiving yards. Most ever in regulation in NFL history. It's number 2 all time, just 7 yards behind a player named Flipper Anderson, who had 336 for the Rams in 1989. But 40 of those came in overtime. So, in my opinion, this is more impressive. Calvin Johnson's the best Lions player of my lifetime. I mean, I wouldn't put him ahead of Barry, but he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. And this was, in my opinion, not only his best performance, this is probably the best performance I've seen by a wide receiver in my entire life. The Cowboys could not stop him all game long.
I met him at when I was working at the movie theater. He came in like one random day.
For real?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Are you just like confusing him with some other black guy?
No, it was legit Calvin Johnson. Like, I'm like, that guy looks familiar. And then I ring him up and everything. And someone's like, dude, that was Calvin Johnson. I'm like, mother.
You just waited outside that movie theater. You're
I
like,
did
I'm
not.
getting his autograph on the way out.
I let him be. You know, I figured if I was famous, I wouldn't always want to be. But there's only a few people.
Yeah.
There's only a few people I would go and like get an autograph. Like Sir Paul McCartney. Yeah, I'd go get an autograph from him. George Lucas, maybe. Harrison Ford, definitely.
Oh, George Lucas wouldn't give you the time of day.
No.
Paul might. Paul is much more friendly and amicable than Mr. Lucas.
For those who don't know, former Beatle, Paul McCartney.
Yeah, if you didn't know who Paul McCartney was,
Yeah.
he played for this band in the 60s, the Beatles, I think it was.
No, it was the Quarrymen.
Liverpool. All other guys. Richard Starkey, I think, was one of them.
Jonathan Lennon.
Yeah. Calvin Johnson apparently came into a pizzeria I worked at part-time in college, but I was making pies back in the kitchen, and I didn't see him. So I'll just have to take their word for it. But I have not met Calvin Johnson like you.
I think it's really cool that I didn't realize that Matt Stafford had potentially the only one-man fake spike in the history of the game. Because I know Dan Marino had his famous, the fake spike. And Ben Roethlisberger had one to Antonio Brown that I called because they got up to the line. He was he's doing the whole spike motion, and then I watched him. He just gives Antonio Brown the thumbs up, and I was like, "It's a fake spike! It's a fake spike!" And everyone was looking at me like I was a madman. And then they fake spiked it, and I was like, "See!" And they just kept looking at me like I was crazy because I was talking like a deranged person. But to fake spike on your own and just jump over Tecmo style, yeah, that's so cool. Like that's just like it's like pressing Y in Tecmo, just whoop over the line.
Just the guys, just to put it out there, I am not much of a sports fan anymore. I think I've gotten old I've gotten crippled. The last sports thing I think I did was do a Great British Bake Off fantasy league with my wife.
They have a fantasy
That does
league?
not count.
What?
Hold on, I'm sorry, fantasy?
So I
take it all back.
I created it with me and my wife, but I actually just Googled it, and it's also, I think it's kind of a thing. It's a Reddit thing. But to be fair, everything's a Reddit thing. So
I know they did
whatever.
the Bachelorette. I saw like ESPN did a Bachelorette fantasy, and I'm like, how?
Yeah. So I mean, it makes. I never watched The Bachelor, but I mean, to get into more detail, there's three bake-offs each episode, and you can get a. The best thing that you could do is get a handshake from one of the judges, and so the handshake is like worth 10 points, and being top 5 in the bake-off is another like 3 points. Me and my wife had it all written out, and I absolutely destroyed her. So that was pretty fun. So I'm just letting you guys know, like, I'm not much of a sports guy anymore, but to be fair, for me, when we thought about doing impactfulness, talk about favorite sports moments, I thought of impactfulness, stuff that like I saw it and it was like, oh, this is crazy that we're doing this. This is nuts. So for me, the number 3 is the butt fumble. So my boy Mark Sanchez, Thanksgiving Day, 2012. I'm not sure what was going on. I'm not sure of the play. I recently saw it again. But man, he just ran right into his center and just fumbled the ball. And that's why they call it the butt fumble. But to be fair, though, and I didn't know this thinking about it, and I actually went back. One of my favorite defensive linemen is Vince Wilfork. I think he was a monster for a very long time. And he was actually the reason why the butt fumble happened, because he caught the center off guard and drove him like 2 yards. And so that is the reason why Mark Sanchez actually did the butt fumble. Yes, do your research.
That's just never something I've even considered researching.
I don't know why I said that. It just felt right to say it. I'm not saying.
Hey man, take shots. I'm open for all of it. If it's content, hit me with it.
Okay. Yeah, cool. So yeah, that's my number 3.
Honestly, I love learning the stories behind like all-time bloopers of plays, you know, like the worst play ever before the Dallas play in the playoffs last year to end the season was that Colts play where Pat McAfee's name happened to be at the bottom of the screen when the play was going on. And so Pat McAfee has to deal with comments about the weird formation play. And so like hearing his story about what was supposed to happen and why it went wrong, and now he's like irrevocably tied to awful plays. I think that's the most fascinating thing.
So for me, my sports fandom is really tied to like where I'm from. So I really only follow Detroit sports or University of Michigan or University of Tulsa. Basically, I follow everything besides baseball because I got bored playing baseball. I can't watch it, even with the whatever pitch clock they have now. No, thank you. Maybe if I'm trying to fall asleep, I'll put it on. But
it does make it better. But I hear you. I'm not a big baseball guy either.
I got one from each team, including honorable mentions, but I got 2 sports right now. The first one, though, back in 2019, the Red Wings basically told the previous general manager, Ken Holland, that they're not going to renew his contract. And they bring in Red Wings legend Steve Yzerman, which if you guys don't follow anything about hockey, he was huge in the 90s I think he retired 2009. Basically, he is what launched the Wings into their second dynasty in the late 90s. To early 2000s, where we won, I think, 3 or 4 cups, Stanley Cups off of that. And he comes in there, his first year, 2019, for the draft board. We're up at number 6, and everyone's like, oh, it's going to be Zegras, it's going to be something else. He stands up there, and he says, Moritz Seider from Germany, and no one knows who this kid is. And I was just like, even the crowd, there was like an audible gasp, and Seider looks like he's he's shocked, like, what? I just got picked? So he got a lot of crap for that, and it's funny, they made a video like kind of pulling everyone's crap from it, but then he ends up he's in their farm system for 2 years, and they end up getting another rookie called Lucas Raymond. And then their first season together in 2021, they just take off and have this fantastic season. Moritz Seider ends up winning the Calder Trophy, which is basically Rookie of the Year. So it was just such an amazing thing to see that, you know, we have a GM with knowledge who's good at scouting, which you would have known from Tampa because he kind of set them up into a mini dynasty, the Tampa Bay Lightning. It's so cool to have like your team win such a big award like that, and it's so refreshing because the Wings have been in a bad place recently, and it was just a breath of fresh air. And man, the kid just seems like a genuinely cool and funny person. Like they do a lot of videos, and I was just so happy that the Red Wings are they're on the way to becoming back. They're not back yet. They still have a long ways to go. But I say for me, that's one of my favorite moments, just seeing the validation that like we did choose the right guy.
That is super cool.
They needed to go through these bad times too, because for a long time, I know they had this, historic playoff streak where they were 20-something
25
seasons
years
in a row. They made the playoffs.
But that has also screwed us to where we are now, and like how long it's
Right,
taken.
exactly. So like for so long they were just good enough, but they kind of needed to hit rock bottom so that they could rebuild. Because you don't just want to make the playoffs every year and get a first round exit.
So I totally know what it is. But for any listeners who have absolutely no clue what the farm system is, do you mind explaining that?
So for basically, there's 4 big American sports. Football is the biggest. Then I'd say basketball, baseball, then hockey. For baseball and
soccer's getting there, man.
Soccer, yeah, MLS is getting up there. Might overtake hockey. I don't watch soccer, or football. It's known around the world. I don't really watch it. But go Liverpool, yeah.
Yeah,
farm system.
Pickleball is getting up.
Pickleball is also
up there too.
It's crazy how
Pickleball is a lot of fun.
I refuse to play it.
Why?
In my first year of high school, 2009, our gym teacher like introduced us to pickleball, but he used like these crap, like those bad dodgeballs that just foam and like squeeze down and compress really easily. We played with that, which you're not supposed to play with. And I'm like, this game is stupid and I hate it. And now that it's taken off, I'm going to be a Grinch on purpose, an Ebenezer Scrooge, just because I had a bad experience, 14 years ago.
You used a foam dodgeball?
Yeah, because they got rid of those rubber
pickleball?
Yeah, they play pickleball. So it sucked. You're not supposed to use that.
Well, that's just irrational. If he made you play football with a bowling ball and you hated football for life, that,
I'm not. I know it's
put that
irrational,
on the sport.
but I need to be the one person that doesn't like.
Do you know what a pickleball ball looks like?
It's a wiffle ball,
yeah,
right?
it's a wiffle ball.
Yeah.
But again, this was 2009. No one had heard this game. Probably because he was a senior citizen. He knew pickleball, but it was way before its time.
Senior citizens are the one who introduced us to pickleball.
Exactly. He was before all the other people. Anyways, the farm system. Baseball and hockey, usually when you're drafted, unless you're some superb athlete that's just hyped through the roof, you're going to go and play a couple years, at least 1 year, if not 2 to 3 years in what people call the minors. So that's like smaller leagues. So there's the American Hockey League, the Canadian Hockey League, Swedish Hockey League is where Raymond and Sider went. Basically, it's just to develop your skills and make you a better hockey player. And then you gradually will move up until you're making the Red Wings AHL team, which is the Grand Rapids Griffins. And then from there, you can probably make it up to the Wings, jump that, or it's they're preparing you for a better league. So that's what the term farm.
That's actually really cool, because like it bums me out sometimes to see like good players get drafted into the NFL, and then it's like, oh hey, you have to go play for the Bears. And it's like, oh well, rip your career, dude, it's over.
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
It's the money.
Yeah, it's the money. I was thinking about
Caleb Williams, who won the Heisman Trophy last year. His dad recently tweeted or something and said, because he's a junior, and he said if the right team is at the top spot, he'll just come back to college another year.
I think I heard that. But I was thinking a couple days ago that like, what if the NFL used like the USFL or the XFL for like a farm team? I think that would be a good way not to only foster more fans to go cheer on the Michigan Panthers, but it'd probably help with development guys, and you could be a little more risky because you can send them down to the minors and then bring them back up.
Right. Plus, year-round football, I nothing in the world would make me happier.
Yeah, the only problem with that is injuries. And I think that's a lot of the reasons why athletes leave college so early, because could you imagine, like, you could have a shot of making $1 million.
Right. You got to make that bag.
You got to make that bag, man, because all that time you're not making anything.
Well, now you are.
It's changing now, Lou.
Yeah.
Now you are. What's the Manning?
Arch Manning.
Yeah, Arch Manning. Yeah.
He's making more than a bunch of NFL players. He hasn't even played a snap as a freshman at Texas.
I'm so freaking excited for Arch Manning to come to the NFL. You have no idea.
I didn't know anything about that.
Archibald.
If somehow Arch Manning ends up on the Steelers, I'm just going to shit my pants in like pure joy. I cannot wait for this to happen.
The rate the Steelers are going, it might happen.
Right? Me next. So I apologize for the repeat Chiefs. But for me, my number 2 sports moment was the 13 seconds game. And what made this extra special was the year before the 13 seconds game, which was a Bills-Chiefs playoff game. I want to say it was the AFC Championship game, but it might have been the divisional round. The year before, I came up to my dad and my uncle, and I said, hey, let's play a little game. Let's each pick all 8 division winners, and whoever picks the most correctly, the other 2 will pay for his dinner. We'll go out, we'll have dinner. It'll be this fun thing. And so we did that. I won, and I won because Paul picked the Lions to win the NFC North, and my dad picked the Vikings, and I went, you're both idiots, and I picked the Packers, and Aaron Rodgers won MVP, and that was the one win that pushed me over the edge to win. And so the year after, Rob came up to me and was like, hey, that sounds pretty fun. Do you mind if I jump in on that? And I was like, yeah, they like you. Yeah, we'll bring you in. And so we all pick our teams, and the only division that there's any disagreement on is the AFC North. I picked the Steelers to win because I'm a homer, not because like I was 100% voting with my heart. Rob picked the Ravens because he's smarter than the rest of us. I think Paul might have also picked the Ravens. My dad might have picked the Browns.
I was so close to picking the Bengals. Just, I want to put that out there.
Yeah, and the Bengals win. And so we all went 7-1. We all hit the exact same 7 teams. And then the one team that nobody picked was the team that won the AFC North. And so we got to the end of the season, and there was a tie. And so I proposed, hey, let's do a survival style pick'em league where we all pick every single playoff game, and whoever has the most correct picks, then that's how we do the tiebreaker. We just we kept going farther into the playoffs, and the deciding factor between whether or not I kept going or Rob kept going was I picked Kansas City and he picked Buffalo. And what made this extra fun for me was I was watching live via antenna. Rob was watching via the stream with a streaming service, and a streaming service can have you behind about 30 seconds. And so I texted him early on in the game. He was like, whoa, hey man, no spoilers. Like, I'm watching this on Peacock or whatever the heck it was airing on. And so I knew, okay, I am X amount of seconds ahead of Rob. And so the 13 seconds game, the last 5 minutes, it was just touchdown. And the lead is jumping back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And me and Rob start texting each other every time our team scores, kind of talking smack. I get this text from Rob where he goes, what, you think you guys are going to be able to pull it out now? Because he's 30 seconds to a minute behind me. And for him, the Bills just scored a touchdown to go up 3 with 13 seconds left. There's no way the Chiefs can tie this game at this point. But the Chiefs run a quick play, Tyreek Hill, call a timeout. And then the coverage was wild where they had 2 deep safeties that were so far back, they were essentially out of the play except for, trying to prevent a deep ball. They had, I want to say 5 guys on the line. So they took it was either 4 or 5 guys. So they took 7 or 6 of their defenders right out. I want to say it was 5 on the line. So really there were only three people playing the middle of the field. 2 of them were on the far side of Travis Kelce. So they weren't doing anything. So there were only 2 guys who could defend Kelce. And Mahomes hikes the ball and immediately looks Matt Milano, I believe, looks him off, gets him out of where Kelce needs to be. So now Kelce is in one-on-one coverage, which if you know anything about football means you basically have an automatic completion. And Mahomes throws this perfect pass. They get in field goal range, and then they either call a timeout or they spike it. And as this is happening, Rob on his delay texts me and he goes, still thinks your Chiefs can pull it out? And I go, yeah, I think we'll be okay. And so it was an awesome moment. It was one of the greatest games in NFL history. But I also got to confidently talk smack to Rob because I was about 30 seconds to a minute ahead of him in time. And so that made it extra special for me because I got to, lord that over a friend.
I would like to say that I believe I wasn't trying to be like, oh, you think the Chiefs can pull this out? It was a genuine question. I'm like, oh, do you think they got this?
Well, that makes it less fun. I'm going to pretend you didn't say that.
What a way to pull the
rug out. Well, I mean, it's just, over text.
Rug really took the room together.
I know, right? Great movie. But yeah, I just over the text, you probably read it.
Did you just say overrated?
I would say it's
get
underrated.
To that on the overrated.
Watch it again.
I will.
You need to. It requires multiple.
Where's the money, Lebowski? You got the wrong man.
I think it's down there.
See,
what movie is this?
The Big Lebowski.
The Big Lebowski.
I feel like it has a big cult. It's a cult movie, so I wouldn't say it's overrated because there's just vocal
minority.
Yeah, vocal minority. Yeah,
but yeah, that was easily my number 2 game sporting experience, or it was until Rob totally recontextualized it for me.
That's staying in, so the world knows.
I mean, now to be fair, it was still an incredible game, but that did absolutely kind of put a cherry on top of what was already a fun experience for me.
Yeah, my number 2, unlike my number 3, is actually a very iconic game, I think. League wide, we're sticking with the National Football League here, and it is so memorable that if I just say 2 numbers, you already know what game it is. And you know what those 2 numbers are? It's 28-3. Of course, I'm talking about How so? 28-3. That's two numbers.
You said 28-2-3. I'm being an asshole. Don't worry, we'll cut it out. Or Rob probably won't, so I look like a fool. But whichever it is.
I thought it was funny.
It was a good pun.
Yeah, it was.
It was a stretch. It was really a stretch there. Of course, I'm talking about Super Bowl 51, in which Tom Brady, GOAT, and the New England Patriots came back from a 28-3 deficit in the late third quarter to defeat the Atlanta Falcons 34-28 in the first ever Super Bowl overtime. I'm a huge Brady fan personally due to his Michigan ties. He wasn't elite in college, but he did do some nice things. I mean, he was a sophomore backup on the 1997 national title squad. And then as a starter, his junior and senior year, he led them to a Big Ten championship in 98. And then in 99, he defeated Alabama in the Orange Bowl in his final game. But is really in the NFL that he became the greatest quarterback to ever play the game. And in my opinion, this was the game that cemented it and made him the GOAT. Going into the game, a lot of people, myself included, already considered him there, but he was tied for rings with Joe Montana and Terry Bradshaw at 4 apiece. A lot of people said, oh, Joe Montana's 4-0 in Super Bowl, Tom Brady's 4-2. That's a stupid argument, in my opinion. I'm not going to reward Joe Montana, the great Joe Montana, not taking anything away from him, but I'm not going to reward him for losing in the playoffs earlier. That's stupid. Either way, this is the time he broke the tie. He wins 5 Super Bowls, and in the fashion in which he did it, ice in his veins, coming in clutch. I mean, Michael and I have talked about this game a lot in the past, and his kind of stance is that a close back and forth game is much more enjoyable than a comeback. Because when you have a huge comeback, what you essentially have is one part of the game where one team dominated and then the other team dominated in the second. And I think that's very fair for a neutral observer. But for me as a Brady fan, the comeback made it incredibly thrilling. And then for just the personal side, I was watching it with a number of friends. One of them hated the Patriots, and he was really giving it to me, rubbing it in throughout the first half. And so it was just very satisfying to watch his, entire demeanor change throughout the course of the comeback. 28-3 is my number 2.
That Edelman catch is just insane.
Oh my gosh.
One of the best catches of all time.
I think the announcers were so great because I think everyone felt that where he's like, oh my gosh, that's a catch as you're watching the slow-mo replay, because I think that's exactly how all of us felt.
It was like 2 catches. He caught it, he dropped it, he caught it again in half a second before it had a chance. I've rarely seen anything like that.
Yeah.
It's up there with the circus catch or the Odell catch.
Not the Jefferson catch?
That one was incredible too. That was like nothing. Yeah, that's another one.
Yeah,
that could be. I'm gonna add that to the list.
I was watching it with a group of my fraternity brothers, and it was just like, "What? He caught that?" And it was everyone was just so hyped.
That one is gonna stick with Matt Ryan forever. I have no ill will towards Matt Ryan, but 28-3 is gonna be part of his legacy. In fact, did you guys see? He was announcing one of the NFL games this past weekend, I think, and his co-host said, man, this game should be 28-3 right now. I'm like, dang, dude.
Oh, that's brutal. That is actually the one game where I kind of rooted for Tom Brady because I was so bored. I was like, all right, like I had my fun, but I don't want to watch another half of just unwelcome canoodling on the part of the Falcons. Yeah. And I was just like, I literally in the room to everybody there, I was like, I am officially changing sides for the remainder of the Super Bowl. I want this to be fun. And so
you're not a bandwagoner? You just swept.
Oh no, it was a
sides.
Yeah. I could give a shit about the Falcons. Do not care about that team in the least. I just wanted the Super Bowl to be good at that point, and so I had a temporary visa into the dark side just so I had something to root for.
I'll buy you a Brady jersey.
I will burn it, and then I'll put it on the Instagram. Go follow us on Instagram at The Top Podcast with 2 E's.
All right, so my number 2, just wanted to, before we go out, I know I've been doing a lot of just before this, I do not promote violence, at least unwanted violence. Just wanted to say that before I did it. But my number 2 is back in November 19th, 2004, versus the Indiana Pacers.
Oh my God, you chose this? You chose this? What?
The Indiana Pacers versus Detroit. It was a little little known thing called Malice in the Palace.
At the same difference.
Malice at the well, it says in the palace, but Malice at the Palace, whatever. My favorite player of all time, and this is the reason why I grow my afro out as a child, and probably a little bit of the reason why I grow it out still now. My favorite basketball player is Ben Wallace. I wanted to be Ben Wallace. I was all for it, Fear the Fro. And then when I found out my favorite basketball player at a very young age, 2004, I was early. I can't remember how old I was, but I was pretty young when I found this out. When my favorite basketball player went into the stage and started throwing hands against the crowd, blew my mind as a child. I'm not going to lie. It cemented some things in my life.
What? I thought that was all. I didn't think any of the Pistons. I don't think any of the Pistons fought the fans. It was. Oh gosh, what was his name?
Ron Artest.
Yeah.
Was it just Ron? I'd have to rewatch it again because I just watched it and I thought both of them were in the stands.
Have you seen the Untold documentary on it?
No, I want to.
That was good.
If you get Netflix, good. give it a watch because it is. They do really good documentaries, and that one was fantastic.
I'm pretty sure. I thought that Detroit was in the stands as well. I could be wrong.
I think they may have been like pulling them off, like the Pacers fans.
Yeah, I think there was a fight between the two teams for a little bit, and then one of the Pacers players went and he like laid down on that table, and then that guy threw the beer on the player who was laying down, and that's where it went from a brawl between the players to a brawl between the Pacers and the Detroit crowd.
Yeah, so they crawl in the stands to try to get them to.
There's footage. One of the guys went to go punch somebody and he slipped, and like when you watch the footage, the windup, it looked like he was gonna actually knock the guy's head off. Like he probably would have killed him because it was just some he was a small, like he was short, he wasn't super fit, and this just like 6'7", jacked athlete was just ready to like throw a punch, and it was like that probably would have either ended his life or put him in the hospital forever, except that he slipped on some beer and like that. Yeah, that was wild.
Yeah, I mean, I think another reason why I wanted to share this is because I just think people, especially fans, sometimes separate themselves into thinking that athletes are real people and that they have like real emotions. I don't think people understand, and this is not because like I'm an athlete or whatever, I was an athlete. It's like you are at like the height state. You're like the highest, like you're wired, right? Like you're trying to play against like all grown men who are just like at the best of their game, and you're trying to do that as well. When like fans are acting stupid, sometimes athletes are going to make dumb decisions. I'm not promoting this by any means, and I don't like any type of violence. But like, what were you expecting to happen?
Right?
Like, what was the outcome? Because like words hurt sometimes, and a lot of athletes are very emotional.
So do beer cans.
Yeah, and beer cans hurt. So I'm not saying.
I assume I've never actually had one thrown at me, but like it seems like a safe bet.
If we reach 500 subscribers in 1 month, we'll throw a beer can at Mike.
I'll take it. I'm in. It has to be open because that beer can was open.
True. Well, Lou will have to do it because he's there.
Oh no, we're gonna fly you out, Robert.
All right.
Have you guys been to Little Caesars?
I have. Multiple
Arena.
times.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. Hot and ready's are the best.
It's nice, but I feel like it does kind of lack the heart and the soul of like the Joe.
Well, I think it's just because we haven't had any like real playoff teams since then.
Sure.
But the Malice at the Palace reminded me. So 2 years ago, the Pistons were playing the Lakers. Our center Isaiah Stewart, also known as Beef Stew, was trying to get a rebound, and LeBron James is off of a foul. So they're doing free throws. LeBron James just like winds back and elbows him in the face, and like for a while he just like is stunned by it, and then like he starts bleeding, and he just charges LeBron James like he's piling through people. People got like flashbacks to like, fans, please stay in your seats, and like the whole air was tense that like another Malice at the Palace would happen, and it didn't, but it was just a wild moment.
Was that were they in Little Caesars by then?
They were. Yeah, it was at Little Caesars.
Yeah, we got to make sure there's no brawls there because there's no good rhymes for Little Caesars. Like Malice at the Palace, fantastic branding, but there's no good way to do that for Little Caesars Arena.
I could see like a bunch of like editors like around a big table, and they're like, what are we gonna name this thing?
Heinz Field definitely. Heinz Field is definitely the superior food related field name.
Amen.
Rest in peace, Heinz Field.
The one thing I don't like about Little Caesars Arena is there's no Timmy's in there. It doesn't feel like a hockey arena without Timmy's.
What is Timmy's?
Tim Hortons? Come on, man.
Tim Hortons?
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
There was like a random kid named Timmy.
Yeah.
That Robert
I just assumed it was like,
I
don't know, some specialty, pretzel stand or something, I am of the opinion that I will always enjoy any sporting event more on my couch eating food that I prepared or purchased myself and my surround system to sitting in a hard chair in a potentially unpleasant weather environment next to God knows who is sitting next to me. So I don't have a long history of going to sporting events, so it could have been anything.
Well, you're lucky because 75% of Detroit teams play in a dome or inside. So,
oh well, still not going, but
I enjoy live games. Just the environment's really fun.
Yeah. I did get to go to. I got to go to a suite for one Lions game. We played the Vikings in one. I think it was my senior year of high school, so it would have been 2012, 2013 season, and that was pretty cool.
I will say, like, surprisingly, I've seen hockey, football, basketball, and baseball. So I've seen all of them in Detroit. My favorite, honestly, live is hockey.
Mm-hmm.
I think going to a Red Wings game, I think is surprisingly just really fun. I think the fans are like really awesome too, comparably.
Yeah. Well, and they say like, even if you're not a hockey fan, if you go to a hockey game, you'll leave being a hockey fan. Like just that environment is good.
Yeah,
I think the Big House is without a doubt the most enjoyable live sporting experience. I did the thing. I don't know if you guys ever got to do this in high school where you work the concessions for the first 3 quarters and then you get to catch the last quarter of the game.
They made us work the whole time.
Oh, we got to cut out early and watch the end of the fourth quarter. And we almost came back against Iowa. We lost, but it was still like, it was a close game. And the college atmosphere when it's a close game and everyone's really hyped, that was transcendent. I've never experienced anything like that, and I would go to a college game probably before any other sporting experience live.
Did you guys do that?
I was wondering, has everybody worked a college game or like worked one of the session stands?
I did, yeah.
I have not.
Oh, okay. I worked a Little Caesars one, and I ate so much sausage just because like you can't judge how much
like
sausage.
the topping.
The topping, yeah. I ate so much.
Not even the pizza, just
well, I couldn't eat the pizza because like people, they would find out, but they couldn't tell how much topping I ate, and it was pretty much endless. So I was just shoving sausage in my mouth. No pun intended.
Oh, don't say that.
Hey, Rob, I need you to cut that and I need you to send it to me.
I got so sick by like the fourth. I think I was at a baseball game, so I got so sick at like, I don't know, the 9th inning that I was gone. I was like, I could not. My stomach cramped in ways that I've never expected before. I wouldn't recommend eating handfuls of sausage.
My senior year of high school, we went there, and somehow, I don't know how, it was like me and 2 other guys got to go up to the executive suites and serve like the concession stand up there. So we were like serving steaks and prime rib and all that. And it was like late November, so everyone else was freezing cold. And I just had a great time. So we also got we took breaks because, you know, those executives aren't going to be there all the time. And we got to eat for lunch. We got like the steak and everything. But I just remember coming back and like all 3 of us had like this big smile on our face. Like, yeah, that was so much fun. And everyone's just like, F you guys. We had to stand out in the cold, peddling hot dogs.
We pulled a Lou and we're like, I'm going to drop this on a table, so I'll have to eat it.
What a callback. You'll love to see it.
Callback king right here, baby.
My number 2. I will preface this that there might be some recency bias, but the last 2 Detroit Lions games have been different.
They have been different.
So the end of last season, for anyone that doesn't follow football or didn't follow the Lions and just lived under a rock, because if you follow football, you heard about it. But the last day of the season comes last year, or last games of the season, and there ends up being like a 3-way tie between the Seahawks, the Packers, and the Lions. And the Seahawks have to win a game, and if they win a game, the Lions are out. And if the Green Bay beats the Lions, because they're playing that week, they're playing the Lions, then Green Bay goes to the playoffs. The Seahawks play the Rams earlier that day. They end up beating the Rams by some atrocious officiating that people joke that the NFL is rigged. Sometimes it does look like it. You know, whether it is or not is hearsay. But there were some terrible calls. The Seahawks won. So as Lions fans, they are just destroyed and shattered because that means our playoffs dream has died. And any past Lions team, if that would have happened, they would just given up, called it the season. But the Lions go into Lambeau Stadium, which is the Packers' home stadium. Prime time. Aaron Rodgers is trying to be the comeback king and lead his team to the playoffs. They go in there and they just put their foot down and dominate that game. There's, I think, 3 or were 3 interceptions. There should have been 4, but one was called back against Aaron Rodgers. And they make a statement that just because we lost doesn't mean that we're going to let you guys win and just walk over us and get in. And that's something past Lions team haven't done. And then this past week, if you listen to the last podcast, you kind of heard me excited about it. The NFL gave us the opening game against the previous Super Bowl champions, the Kansas City Chiefs. And they was at Arrowhead, so their home field. And everyone's like, the Lions, they looked good last year, but they haven't proved anything, which to be fair, we haven't. Everyone's like, the Chiefs, they're going to just smoke them and everything. And it shouldn't be that big of a deal. Hopefully the Lions at least look decent was what most people are kind of hoping and saying. But they come in there and they're down at half by a touchdown. And again, any previous Lions teams, you're down, especially against Patrick Mahomes, probably like the slitheriest quarterback out there. Just be able to freaking Houdini make plays.
It's insane. Any play, he's never down till he's down. Yep. And it's not even like he's like just running fast. Like you saw Michael Vick run and like, man, that guy's fast, or Lamar Jackson. It's just like he's like casually trotting and that was 15-yard scamper.
They're down at half and everyone's just like, oh man, we've seen this Lions team before, a lot of hype, but then they face some adversity and that's it they give. But they end up coming back, having a very strong second half. I think the second half, Patrick Mahomes was 0 for 7 on third down conversions, which is just crazy for the next up and coming greatest QB. He's already in the conversations. I've heard a lot of people throw around that he's the GOAT. But we end up holding him and we win. We beat them at home by 1 point, which a lot of people are like, oh, it's by 1 point. But we beat the defending Super Bowl champs with adversity. Patrick Mahomes had got the ball twice in the last 5 minutes. And if you watch the Chiefs, even if it wasn't the Lions, you would think, oh, that's game over. Whoever they're playing, the Chiefs are going to win when they're only down by 1 point. But the Lions freaking put in their feet, were gritty about it, and got that win. And it was, man, I stayed up all night. When I finally went to bed at 4:30 a.m., I just had this biggest smile on my face because my team was actually doing something. If you guys don't know about the Lions, the worst franchise in history. Yeah, historically the worst NFL team in history, hands down. The only one that might be able to compete is the Browns, but they took
all those years off. Yeah, it doesn't count.
That's true. And I think they've made it further in the playoffs than we have since the freaking 50s. But
they went to the AFC Championship game.
Yeah,
no, the divisional rounds.
Beat the Chiefs, or they lost to the Chiefs. Sorry.
Yeah,
which
is something the Lions didn't do.
It's true. Jared Goff has never lost to Patrick Mahomes. And
I'll tell you what, I've never seen a bad Jared Goff, Patrick Mahomes game in my life.
Yeah.
Those two are always electric.
And it just has me so hyped for this next season. Maybe it is actually different, and it's our time. It's not just some fake hype. Like, the players have bought in. The coaching staff has bought in. The city has bought in. And it's such an awesome feeling growing up, 28 years now with the Lions being the garbage of the league. And now it's like we're actually getting to that next step. And man, I'm almost tearing up here just talking about it. That's my number 2 pick. Yeah. We'll see where the season goes, but right now I'm on cloud 9. I don't think the Seahawks are going to stand a chance against us next week.
I got to open with this. Me and Andrew watched the first half of that game together. Before kickoff, he turns to me, goes, "Who's going to win this game?" And I was like, listen, I've been kicked too many times by this team. I would love to say the Lions have a chance, but no, he didn't ask who would win the game. You asked me who would win the division, and I still couldn't say with any, it's not that I didn't think they were good. It's that I've bought in too many times and just had my heart broken that I wasn't willing to say the Lions are going to do it. And Andrew told me, he says, all right, you do not get to claim them as your team this year. And I fully embrace and accept that. That being said, what's happening in Detroit is so cool. And to be able to see the ride they're going on and to watch Dan Campbell do his thing, it's very fun to be able to watch from the sidelines and cheer you guys on as you get to experience that.
And just an awesome head coach.
Fighting kneecaps and taking names.
Yeah. So our head
He's never going to live that down.
No, our head coach came in there and gave some very fighting and rough, the word examples or, analogies to how this team is their identity and all that. And for the people of Detroit who are very hardworking blue collar people, they're like, yeah, we're going to be fighters, especially because the bad boys and the going to work Pistons, they were all, tough and we're just ready. We're going to go out there. We're going to beat them down and be physically dominant. And he just got blasted on the the nationwide scale, like, oh, he's just a meathead talking about biting kneecaps. And now he's the favorite to win the coach of the year. So it's just great. I'm so happy for him as a dude. He seems like a genuinely good guy, especially coming from the dark years that we won't say their names anymore on this podcast, but it is such a breath of fresh air.
And dark times for the franchise, but he lived through some of it because he was a former Lion, was he not? On the 08,
he was on the 08
wow,
team
that went 0-16.
First team to ever lose every game in a 16-game season. He was on that team, and like,
wasn't Matthew Stafford on that team?
No, we got
that was the year we got
Calvin Johnson was.
Okay, I was gonna say, have we ever had a coach who was a player with their quarterback before? But the answer is no. So
they traded him. He didn't actually. Stafford never played for Campbell.
Oh, did he not? It's always been Goff.
Yeah, and I remember we were at one of Kyle's parties. We were playing Flip Cup,
Kyle,
and I got the notification on my phone that like Matthew Stafford was traded. And I'm like, guys, everyone stop! Matthew Stafford's been traded, and everyone was like, the guys were reacting, all the girls just. It
was a great moment. It was you, me, and shout out Anthony Silver, our most recent Instagram follower.
Ooh, thanks, Anthony.
What's up, buddy?
Chili Anthony. That's what we call him.
Chili Anthony.
I think we just lost a follower.
He's just like, yep.
Nah, man. Anthony's good people. He'll stand by us. Alrighty. Closing the notebook and speaking from the heart here.
Nice.
So my number one, you think I got pushback on Jet Chip Wasp. Get ready for me picking one of the lamest Super Bowls of all time. My number one sports moment of all time was Super Bowl 40, the Pittsburgh Steelers plus the refs on their side versus the Seattle Seahawks.
Wow. I'm shocked.
Just like with Jet Chip Wasp, what made this Super Bowl special for me was the journey to get to this Super Bowl. The year before, actually, I'm going to go back a little further. So my dad was a pastor, and we used to do...
Was a pastor?
It is a pastor, yeah. But at the time, he was a pastor, but he had become a pastor recently. And I forget what the event was for, but there was some event where they bought this DVD. And it was the history of the Super Bowl. They played it in the background during this event. I think they just wanted football footage going. And somehow it ended up at our house. And I watched that thing all the time. I was the weird sixth grader on the block who knew about Joe Namath, Roger Staubach, and Terry Bradshaw and Lynn Swann and the Immaculate Reception. I knew all this random old school football, and just that touchdown pass from Terry Bradshaw to Liz Swann, where Swann goes up and he's like, I think he actually was he practiced ballet for his footwork. And so he just went up and it was the most graceful thing ever and kind of tipped the ball back to himself and caught it and runs into the end zone, touchdown. I just fell in love with the steel curtain Steelers. Like, I thought they were the coolest thing ever. And that same year, I forget who the starting quarterback was, but he gets injured and Ben Roethlisberger comes in, famous woman respecter, Ben Roethlisberger, and they go 15-1. Shout out Barry McCockney. And I was in sixth grade. It's this team that I was already really into, and they go 15-1. They don't win the Super Bowl, and I was enamored with this team, and I was like, I'm gonna be a Steelers fan. And it's that classic thing you do when you're young, and there's this team that's winning and they're hot, and you just jump on the bandwagon. But it's like, you're in sixth grade, whatever. And the next year, the Steelers struggled hard. Right. They did not do well, barely made the playoffs. They were the sixth seed. At that point, no sixth seed team had ever won a Super Bowl. And everybody just gave me crap all year long. And they were like, you still a Steelers fan? You're still a Steelers fan? And it just it galvanized me. And I was like, screw you. Yeah, I'm a Steelers fan. It doesn't matter if we're losing. I'm sticking with them. And we get there in the sixth seed and we got to play the Bengals. And the only reason we won that game was because Carson Palmer got injured. And we escaped from the number 3 seeded Bengals on the road in Cincinnati. And then we have to go and we have to play Peyton Manning and the number 1 seeded Colts. We are so close. All we got to do, we were on like the 2 or the 3. All we got to do is punch it in, score a touchdown, we win. And we hand off to Jerome Bettis. And somebody gets in there and they just pop the ball out and it's a fumble and it's recovered by Indy. And Ben makes this just incredible dive, tackle, and saves what would have been the go-ahead game to just go-ahead touchdown to ice it. And we managed to get a stop and we win against the number 1 seeded Colts. And then we go and the number 2 seeded Broncos, we go to Mile High. I think that was the Tim Tebow Broncos. It's not even that incredible of an accomplishment in hindsight, but we beat the Broncos and we go to the Super Bowl. It's Super Bowl 40. It's in Detroit. Jerome
No,
Bettis
Tim
is home.
Tebow Broncos beat the Steelers.
Oh, you're right. So it would have been a different Broncos team. I was in 6th grade. Yeah, we get it's Super Bowl 40. It's in Detroit. It's all happening here. It wasn't a good Super Bowl. There were some questionable calls, but the team that I stuck with I was taking it from my friends. We barely made the playoffs, and then we did it the hard way. And we were the first team to win a 6th seed in my hometown. That galvanized me for life, and I still have some Live Strong bracelets from Super Bowl 40 that my aunt's fiance acquired for me. Yeah, that was the moment where I was a Steelers fan because I was a bandwagon fan, and then I became a Steelers fan for life because I stuck with them when it didn't look good, and we won the Super Bowl anyway.
I got a Pepsi can that you know how Pepsi makes like the Super Bowl cans and everything. I got one for Detroit, sitting in my office.
That's pretty cool.
I live right next to the bridge that they built for the Super Bowl.
Yep, the football.
Oh my
bridge.
gosh, that ugly ass blue bridge.
Yeah.
In the draft next year too. This is probably
back.
the first NFL event we're getting since the Super Bowl.
It's going to be great once we win the Super Bowl and then have the draft there.
Are you going to attend the draft, Rob?
Yeah, me and some buddies are going. We're going to camp out there. If you want to come, I think it's first come first serve. So we're going to camp out there, bring some snacks and everything. And it's weird because like I don't follow college sports that much, but I just love like the hearing players' stories and like seeing the upsets that everyone has, and taking a running back at 12. It's weird for someone that doesn't really follow college to actually enjoy the draft, but I'd probably just because something I'd do with friends. I'd go and hang out. We'd eat buffalo dip. Lucia would spill the buffalo dip on someone's on someone's doormat and just walk away, and it's a fun time.
Dude, it was like they just moved in too. I think like they weren't even fully moved in. And I just completely just trashed buffalo dip all over their brand new house. Oh my gosh. I blocked that out of my memory.
My number one is, of course, Michigan. And in fact, it's Michigan's most recent win over the Buckeyes in Columbus in 2022. From 2004 to 2020, Michigan won one game over Ohio State. Michigan really faltered as a program after Lloyd Carr left. Two bad coaching hires in a row with Rich Rod and Brady Hoke. Meanwhile, Ohio State remained national power, winning a national title in 2014. Things did look up for Michigan in 2015 when they hired former Michigan quarterback and 49er head coach Jim Harbaugh.
Khakis.
And instantly, Mr. Khakis, instantly improved the program, but still was unable to defeat his biggest rival. A lot of that came down to the defensive coordinator, Donnie Brown, who had an annoying
Don Brown.
Exactly. Horrible over-reliance on man coverage, which allowed Michigan to kind of dominate and push around inferior, less talented teams, but was ultimately costly when they would come up against an equal or more talented opponent like Ohio State, who would burn the secondary for huge plays. But following a really disastrous, horrible 2020 COVID season, Michigan finally fired Don Brown. They bring in Baltimore Ravens linebacker coach Mike McDonald, who instantly turned around the defense. Michigan finally breaks through in 2021, beating Ohio State behind 5 rushing touchdowns from one Hassan Haskins, now a Tennessee Titan. And Michigan would go on to win the Big Ten championship and play in the college football playoff. What makes the 2020 season and victory even more special is that they proved that it wasn't a fluke. I mean, I think you can look at one game and be like, okay, Michigan, a bad clock is right twice a day, right? Michigan was bound to beat Ohio State again. But 22, they proved, no, this was not a blip. They go into Columbus. They win 45-23. They finish their first perfect regular season since they won the national title in 97. In the first half of the game, Ohio State actually looked like the better team. They were crowding the box. They were saying Michigan's going to have to beat us through the air. Our best player, Blake Corum, was out with injury. But Michigan, J.J. McCarthy stepped up to the challenge. He hit some huge passing touchdowns and ultimately forced Ohio State to pull the defense back, which allowed Michigan's run game to ground and pound in the second half. Back up Donovan Edwards, 2 huge touchdown runs in the second half, and they beat the Buckeyes in Columbus. They win a second consecutive Big Ten title, make a second consecutive playoff appearance. And now here in 2023, they're favored to beat Ohio State and win the Big Ten again. Even though it just happened a year ago, maybe some recency bias there, but like Rob's example with the Lions earlier this month, it just meant so much to me.
I will say this, recency bias is always something to consider, but I've met maybe one person in my life who bleeds maize and blue like Andrew bleeds maize and blue. Like, this guy loves U of M like nobody I've ever met except maybe my Uncle Paul. And so I think, I don't think it's recency bias, man. I think that is the most pure Andrew sports moment that I can think of. And so I got to give that one to you all day.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, they haven't won since 2011. So it's like, what other Michigan, Ohio State victories would I choose from? Is 21 and 22.
Now, I will say the 21 one was my favorite because that was a much closer game, was it not?
I think it was slightly closer late in the game.
I still think more than a touchdown by the end of it.
Yeah, it was, I think 42-27 was the final score.
Okay. But one of those two, honestly, I don't remember which one it was, but we were having an event at your parents' house. It was a family event. And I'm a sick MFer. I enjoy watching people sweat a little bit. And so watching Andrew pace up and down for the last half of that game just brought me such a sick joy.
Okay, so
Andrew, what was the Michigan Ohio State game where we lost? I want to say in overtime on that
2016. Yeah, double overtime. Michigan was the better team. Don Brown sucks. But here's the thing, the story about that. I was with my friend. I was with Joe. He watched it there, and I was so angry after the game. We had made a bet, and he owed me a Coney dog. That was the bet, and I was like, "You need to get me out of my house. I need to just get some fresh air." So we go. He buys me lunch, and then as we're leaving, this old man drives by and yells, "Go Buck!" And I was ready to commit horrible crimes. Yeah. To a stranger as you drive away. So, yeah. I was so angry. Oh my gosh.
This kind of reminds me of something that happened the past couple months. Not my finest moments, but my wife and I are at the gym. I'm not a hardcore Michigan fan, but I'm a Michigan fan, and we go to the free weights, and there's this guy wearing an Ohio State hat. I tapped back on the shoulder and said, "That guy's a tool right there." And so we keep on lifting out, and I'm wearing a Chance the Rapper hat. And like near the end of our workout, he just comes, taps me on the shoulder and says, "Hey man, nice hat." I'm like, "Mother F you, dude. I don't need this. You're the enemy. You can't be giving me compliments." Becca's like, "What do you say?" And I'm like, I stand by that. And if you are an overseas listener or, not big into football, this is probably one of the closest games we get to your football matches, like just the rivalry and the kind of the anger towards the other team, animosity towards the other team, and like this rivalry is called the game. Like, it's that big. It's like there's the three top rivalries in sports of college football are Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama versus
Auburn.
It's Auburn. Yeah,
Auburn. Yeah,
I almost said Clemson.
And then Texas
Auburn.
OU. Would be the other third. Is that what you're going to say?
No, it's Army Navy, because that's such a historical rivalry.
I mean,
Army,
that one's
Navy.
Fourth for me. Yeah. I mean, it is historic, but I wouldn't say the animosity there. I would say they have more respect for each other.
But like usually that's top three college sports rivalries. But
yeah, it is weird because if you aren't from the U.S., the college fans are more intense than
they're way more intense.
Well, and just Michigan and Ohio, the states themselves, don't like each other. Before the Civil War in 1836, there was we fought Ohio as a territory
for the Toledo Strip,
the Toledo War, and we end up getting the whole UP. So we definitely, who wants Toledo? That's a trash city.
Also, shout out to Ohio. History showed that we were right in our land claims, and you guys don't know how to read a map. Google it. Just wanted to make the record straight, and we got the UP out of it, so Michigan wins again.
How did Wisconsin get screwed so hard on that? Like, we fought a war with Ohio and ended up with
I don't think they might not have been a state yet.
Yeah, they were still a territory.
Okay, that's fair.
Well, we were still a territory, and we actually spent so much money in our army that we were about to go like bankrupt because we were just like F the Ohioans, and it's still there today. But
well, it's funny because the University of Michigan is older than the state of Michigan.
It is.
The university is 1817, and the state Michigan gained statehood in 37.
Yep. And so, Andrew Jackson's like, "Hey, we will annul you of this debt if you guys give Toledo to Ohio, and we'll make you a state and everything, and we'll give you this because they had like a treasury basically surplus, so they're giving out to states, and so that's how we paid our debts." was by giving up Toledo and getting the other 75% of the UP. Lou, what's your number one?
So my number one, honestly, I thought when we were talking about this that we could only pick one sport. And so, I mean, I have so many like football honorable mentions, but I was like, you know what, let's be different because I feel like a lot of football was going to be talked. And I was right. So August 8th, 2009, Anderson Silva and Forrest Griffin, UFC match. I remember where I was at. I remember being in my basement watching this fight. It might have been on YouTube, actually. That's probably what it was because my family didn't pay for pay-per-view. So I remember being on YouTube watching this fight. I was a fan for both fighters, Anderson Silva for sure, and Forrest Griffin. Forrest Griffin just had this, I can't remember who we fought, but he had this brutal fight with him and somebody else. And I was just a big Forrest Griffin fan. And Anderson Silva, I think, is just a masterclass at work. I think he's better than John Jones. Is anybody UFC fans here?
I only follow it casually through like social media.
I watched it when I still lived at home. My dad was a casual UFC fan, so I'd see it from time to time. But,
WWE.
Yeah, I guess I talked about my falling in love with UFC because of WWE. Yeah, I also don't often say I'm a UFC fan because I feel like it's connected to a bunch of negativity. Usually the fans of, and then Dana White is a pretty wild character. So I've been really shy about my love for UFC. But yeah, so I'm a big fan of watching I'm a big fan of watching somebody who is just a master at their work, at their craft. And I think Anderson Silva just did an amazing job of just destroying and breaking down Forrest Griffin in the first round with a complete knockout. I think like maybe like two like because a lot of fighting, a lot of it gets a little boring in the beginning because they're all testing each other out and looking at reach advantages and stuff. But I won't get too technical. But at one point, Anderson Silva pretty much knocks Forrest Griffin to the ground, and they kind of tussle a little bit. But Anderson Silva is like, no, I want to stand up fight. Literally lets Forrest Griffin up, shakes his hand and knocks him out in like maybe a minute afterwards. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, crazy. Yeah, it's really solidified my love for UFC.
Spider.
Did you say Biter?
Spider. That was his nickname, Anderson the Spider Silva.
Oh, Spider. I heard Biter with a B.
Sorry.
I heard Biter too. I was like, I think that was Mike Tyson.
Yeah, get out of my head.
Yeah, that was Mike Tyson and Dan Campbell. Sorry. The Spider.
That's funny because I wanted to put Mike Tyson at number one because him in the 90s was crazy. He was a crazy person.
I'm a Joe Louis fan myself.
That I respect that, but I couldn't pick one fight. What's that monument called? Is it called
The Fist?
The Fist. All right, that's me.
Okay, so my number one. Picture this: you're the Detroit Pistons. You have just been putting up stinkers, living in mediocrity for the past decade. You finally fire your old coach GM, because in basketball sometimes even in football it's rare, but Bill Belichick is still the general manager and the coach. We fire, what's his name? Anyway, it doesn't matter because he was trash. You bring up this new guy, Troy Weaver. He is renowned for his scouting ability. He comes in his first year, drafts 3 guys, 2 of them, Isaiah Stewart, as we mentioned before, and Sadiq Bey, go on to make the all-rookie team. You have a terrible season record-wise, but all the games you're close. And it just felt like, man, this team is just on the edge of greatness here. Like, if we could just get a few more players. And unlike the NFL, the National Basketball Association does a draft lottery. So even if you finish with the worst record, you're not guaranteed to get the first overall pick. And that year, the prize was Cade Cunningham, and everyone's saying, fade for Cade. And that, teams were tanking for him and all that. It just felt right in the air. Like everyone felt that energy that this is going to be Detroit's year and we're going to win it. And there's only a 14.5% chance that the top 3 teams land the number 1 overall pick. And by golly, Detroit gets it. Ben Wallace was there. I think the vice commissioner was just too scared to not give it to Detroit because he didn't want Ben Wallace to jump through the camera and beat him down. But Detroit gets the number 1 pick. And oh my gosh, that another moment where I remember because I was living with my mom at the time, coming back from college, kind of to get my feet, and I'm just screaming down in the basement, and I was so happy. And it's one of those moments where, even though there was nothing we did about it, it just felt so great. It's like, finally, we're going to win one. And we got our guy in Cade Cunningham. And man, he was awesome. The draft night, there was some talk, maybe it wasn't going to be Cade or not, because our general manager is like, we're going to do our research. We don't want to just go and pick number 1 because that's what everyone says. We want to do our due diligence, which I respect. But Cade gets up there. He gets selected first overall. He pulls out some Cartier buffs, which, if you guys aren't, up on Detroit fashion, is a huge Detroit staple, the buffs. And he's just like, Detroit, I'm all in. And it just felt so good to have a guy that was happy to be on this, bottom feeder team that's been in mediocrity for some time. And he's like, I'm all in. And on his first game, he took about 3 steps until he was double teamed. That's how much other teams are like afraid of just his playmaking abilities and everything. And it was, he's such an awesome guy. And it was so great to win that. And like, he was even invited to join the FIBA tournament, which is the International Basketball Tournament, but he turned it down. He's like, I want to focus on my Detroit Pistons, make sure we're where we need to be for the upcoming season. And all these like big name NBA players just praise like his game and like they expect him to go far. And it's awesome. Like just that feeling that we got our guy and he is happy to be here. Because there's some people that you're like, they're happy they got drafted high, but they're not happy to, become to Detroit because Detroit's sports scene has been so mediocre recently, and it's such a great feeling just to be like, yes, we got our franchise guy here.
Sounds a little bit like the Joe Burrow story.
Was Joe Burrow happy? Well, he was from Ohio, right?
I don't know if he would be to be here,
he was,
but like just like to have that guy who just shows up, embraces it, and turns the franchise around. It's always like that's such a great experience.
Yeah, and unlike in basketball, it's a lot harder. There's only like a handful of players that can actually that one player can make a difference on a team, but he has such a high basketball IQ that you just see like, man, what is he going to be in 5 years? And it just gets everyone excited for his future and his career. And it sucked last year because he was out with he had to get like some shin surgery and he was out for most of the season last year. And that sucked. The team went downhill and But I'm super excited for this next season with him and the other pieces we've got.
Yeah, the draft, of course, I, being a big sports fan, know all about the draft, but for, our listeners who might not know, when you said the worst team isn't automatically given the top draft, is it like weight in the lottery where a bad team or chance, or is it just a total luck of the draw thing?
Yeah, so each team has a chance at number 1, but the furthest you can fall is 4 spots below. So Detroit was the worst team this past year because we didn't have Cade and some of our other big name players were out. So we were the worst team. And of course, in classic Detroit fashion, which I should mention, Detroit up until that year has never moved up in the lottery. They've only ever moved down or stayed where they were for the Pistons. And of course,
you can trade your spot?
Well, you can trade, but so this year we were the worst team. That means in theory, had the best chances at number 1, and as far as we can fall is 5. So we ended up getting 5th round or the 5th overall pick because of course it's Detroit. You can't have we can only have 1 or 2 good picks here. Nice. Yeah, going up or down or jumping means we were the second worst team the year we got Cade and we jumped to the first spot. So that was the only time in the past, I think 60 years that we've actually jumped up in the draft lottery to go up a spot. And then there's teams that just get lucky, like Cleveland, I think got two number 1 picks pretty close to each other, Minnesota, and there's some teams that just have crazy luck in the draft lottery, but Detroit is never one of them in any sports. Red Wings were historically bad, had one of the worst records, and they fell all the way down the year they were a few years ago.
What do you think the rationale is for having the lottery? Is it that they just don't want teams, intentionally losing games at the end of the year?
Yeah, it's intentionally losing games because, especially this past draft, Victor Wembanyama, who's from France, he's 7'3" and basically can do everything, and that's just such an oddity. He's a beanpole, so I'm afraid that he's gonna take one step and break a leg, but he's just a freak of nature. And if they didn't have that draft lottery, there would have been a ton of teams even tanking more than they already did for Wembanyama.
So do you like it as a fan of the NFL that doesn't have it and
yes
NBA
and no.
that does?
It was nice when we jumped, but Detroit, because hockey and baseball even adopted this, I think, the past year or two. And Detroit's just hasn't had good luck. So that part, it really sucks. But it's nice when you win. Overall, I'd say no, because I'd be rather guaranteed, if you're the worst team, you're going to get the best. You should get the best player, which, makes sense. But that's not the case.
Okay, Lou, what are we talking about next week?
So we're going to do top 5 favorite video game NPCs.
So companions and all that?
It could be companions. It could be took an arrow to the knee. It could be whatever, just non-playable.
Karlak. There you go, Karlak. That's all.
Who's Karlak?
Baldur's Gate 3 companion that everyone's gushes over.
Okay.
Hey, listen.
Oh my gosh, Navi.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of the Top Podcast. You can find our guest Andrew on Indeed if you're looking to hire a project manager. Tune in next week as we talk about our top 5 NPCs. Till next time, peace.
Okay, well, I got a 6 a.m. wake up call, so.
Oh, jeez.